Good morning, dear students. Today we start the reading of the chapter number 3, Discovering Tut. The saga continues by A.R. Williams. Okay, so as we know it very well, that Tut was the last male member of the uh, Egypt family. Okay, and he died accidentally. And in this chapter, we will get to know the efforts done by the two people, two archaeologists like Mr. Carton and Mr. Jahi Hawass, and they tried their level best to CT scan the money, to CT scan the mummy, and to know the reason. Okay, now let's read the chapter. He was just a teenager. Who was that? Tut. When he died, the last heir of powerful family, the last heir. Okay, the second person belongs to king, means after king. Simply say heir. The last heir of powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. Means Tut was the last person of his family who had ruled Egypt for a long time. He was laid to rest laden with gold and eventually forgotten. So his dead body was buried with some gold and people forgot. Since the discovery of his tomb in 1922, his tomb was discovered, the modern world has speculated about what happened to him, with murder being the most extreme possibility. So the modern world means like today, the people discovered that he was murdered. That was the most extreme possibility. It was a possibility, not sure. The people, those who discovered his tomb and got to know that he was murdered, it was not sure. It was just a possibility. Because when the mummy was scanned, it was found that no scratch on his body was being found. Now, leaving his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years, Tut has undergone a CT scan. I just tell you, dear students, Tut's mummy was the first mummy of the world which was being scanned. That offers new clues, and the scanning will offer them new clues, new options about his life and death, both. Okay, then and provides precise data for an accurate forensic reconstruction of the boy's pharaoh. And this CT scan will provide a short span of his life and death, in which the forensic construction, the reports, the labs, which were provided by the Archaeological Survey of India and Boyce Pharaoh, about Boyce Pharaoh. Why Boyce? Because he died at the teenage, and Pharaoh means Egyptian king. Okay, he was the last heir. So in the same way, now let's move. Then an angry wind, means strong wind, stirred up ghostly dust. Devil as King Tut was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egyptian cemetery known as the Valley of Kings. Yesterday, I told you, dear students, that the cemetery was divided into two parts. One part was given to Valley of King, and second was given to Valley of Queens. Means Valley of Queens means all the mummies of the male members like king. So when the this mummy was taken from its resting place, from its coffin, or from resting place, at that time a strong wind was blowing. Dark bellied cloud had circled across the desert sky all day, means throughout the day was cloudy, dark cloudy, you can say, and now were wheeling the stars in cascade gray, means clouds, okay, in the dark night were cascade like gray colors. It was 6 p.m. on January 5th, 2005. This was the date and time. The world's most famous mummy glided had first into a CT scanner brought here to probe the lingering medical mysteries of his little understood young ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. Dear students, his tomb was found in 1922. Okay, and the mummy was buried under the soil 3300 years ago. So, dear children, you can see that 2005, 1922, and 3300 years ago, such a long time, and we can assume that what kind of technique the people they had used, not a single insect got into that coffin. So such kind of technique the people used. Then all afternoon the usual line of tourists when the mummy was dug up, okay, and many tourists throughout the world, from around the world, throughout the world, had descended into the crammed rock cut what design of tomb, some 26 feet underground. The mummy was buried 26 feet underground to pay their respect. All the tourists, those who were the historians, like you can say the archaeologists or the scientists, those who came over there 26 feet down, they paid their respect to the mummy. They gazed at the murals on the striking feature of his walls of the burial chamber. Chamber means coffin. Something was written on the coffin and peered at Tut's gilded face. The most striking feature of his mummy. The striking feature of mummy was that something was written on the burial chamber and Tut's gilded face. Mummy shaped outline coffin lid. Some visitors read from guidebooks in a whisper. Some of them were having books, like historians. Others stood silently, perhaps pondering, thinking Tut's untimely death is fate in late teenagers, or wondering with a severe if the Pharaoh's curse. So some of them they thought that about his untimely death. Some of them they would think about Pharaoh's curse, like all these death or misfortune falling upon those who disturb him. So some of them they think that it is a curse on the people those who disturb him from his resting place. Was really true. That was most commonly true. Then the mummy is in very bad condition because of what Carter did in 1920s. So Carter, what did he do in 1920s? So whatever he did, he that includes that the mummy was in very bad condition. Said Zai Hawass, the archaeologist, Secretary General of Egypt Supreme Council of Antiquities. Who was Zai Hawass? Secretary General of Egypt country of Supreme Council of Antiquities. That was the department. As he leaned over the body for a long first look, for a long first look, Howard Carter, that is was the British archaeologist. Jai Hawass was Egypt belonged to Egypt, Secretary General of Supreme Council of Antiquities, while Howard Carter was the British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered a Tut's tomb after years of futile searching. Means he made a fruitful searching for many years. Lastly, he found the tomb of Tut in 1922. Its content, though hastily ransacked in antiquity, were surprisingly complete. They remain the richest royal collection, means who remain? Tut's family. They remain the richest royal collection ever found and have become part of the Pharaoh's legend. Like stunning artifacts in gold. Their eternal brilliance mean to guarantee resurrection. Resurrection means rebirth. Yesterday we discussed that the mummy was having some kind of artifacts made of gold. Okay, that guarantee what resurrection, that guarantee of their rebirth, caused a sensation at the time of discovery. When it was discovered, that all of them they got surprised and still get the most attention, and most commonly people of the world they give attention because of artifacts in gold the mummy was having. But Tut was almost buried with, but Tut's mummy was having what? everyday things like whatever we need daily, he would want in the afterlife. It was believed that all the Egyptian king or the people, they believed in resurrection or rebirth. That's why whatever a person requires after life, after death, you can say, so all the things were kept in the coffin. Like board games were there, a bronze razor, linen undergarments, cases of food and wine. Dear children, just see board games like carom board, bronze razor for shaving, linen undergarments to wearing undergarments, cases of food and wine. Food and wine even. Wine even. So you can say what kind of royalty has been shown in the coffin. Then, after months of careful recording of Pharaoh's funeral treasures, so both of them means Jai Hawass and Carter, they observed all kind of record of the mummy. Carter began investigating his three nested coffin, three nested, three portion of coffin. Opening the first, when they opened the first, he found a shroud adorned with garland of willow and olive leaves, with flowers, leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers. All these things he found. The faded evidence of burial in March and April. So when he observed these, leaves of olive and willow, it was assumed that the dead body or the king was buried in the month of March or April, because in these months only we find olive leaves. Okay, when he finally reached the mummy, though he ran into trouble. When they found the mummy, there was a problem. The ritual resin. This means like we use Fevicol to join two wooden parts. In the same way, the people of that time they used resin, a white liquid, had hardened cementing tuts on the bottom of his solid gold coffin. So that liquid was applied over there. It was not possible to open without cracking. And as per the order or the, you can say, instruction of the survey, archaeological department, no harm should be reached to the antiquities or antique things. So they need to take care while opening the lid of the coffin, as it was jammed with resin liquid. Okay, no amount of legitimate force could move them. Carter wrote later what was to be done. When they were unable to open that particular coffin lid, then they thought what was to be done. What should we do now? The sun can beat down like a hammer this far south in Egypt, and Carter tried to use it to loosen the resin. Now Carter had an idea. What was that? That sunlight, the sun temperature can heat that liquid or this particular resin. So they decide to put that coffin open in the sunlight so that it would be loosened. For several hours, he set the mummy outside in blazing sunshine. So they put that mummy or the coffin in the sunshine or in open area, that heated it to 140 degree 149 degree Fahrenheit. That was the temperature of that particular Egypt at that time. Nothing buzzed. He reported with scientific testament that the consolidated material had to be chiseled away. Okay, had to be chiseled away from beneath the limb and trunk before it was possible to raise the king's remains. And then they got to know that it should be put into that open area to make it loosen. So till today, that's all. The remaining part we will read in next video. Okay, thank you, goodbye.